Months ago, Erez and Vanessa made an incredible discovery amongst tons of leftover slag the miners left behind.
What's the date?
That's amazing. I think it's the first one.
I need a special bag over here.
This new information could blow the long-sought secret of King Solomon's mines wide open.
It's crazy, but this might be the event that we're looking for.
For centuries, treasure seekers have pursued the famed King Solomon's mines. But as it turns out, if they exist, they may have been hiding in plain sight in a location that's been misunderstood for decades.
This area is full of stuff.
Just a few months ago, in Israel's Timna Valley, archaeologists made a shocking discovery while excavating the region's ancient copper mines.
This is rare. Oh, here you can see it.
It's a finding that could rewrite the history of this well-known legend.
When Dr. Erez Ben Yosef first arrived to the Timna Valley 10 years ago, the area's copper mines were already well known. In fact, many believed there was nothing new to be found. It was commonly accepted that due to the mine's sophistication, they must have belonged to ancient Egypt. Unwilling to accept that as a foregone conclusion, Dr. Ben Yosef's team kept digging, and what they discovered was phenomenal. They discovered hundreds of remnants of the ancient copper workers, seeds, meals, and even touches, all the area's dry climate. These items were so well preserved, in fact, that they could still be carbon dated. The mystery of when these mines were in operation, and therefore who controlled them, was about to be solved.
The team's findings were sent to a lab to determine if these mines truly were legitimate, or if they could have belonged to someone else.
And only when the date came back from the lab, we were amazed, because not a single date fit to the New Kingdom of Egypt. So of course we sent more and more samples, and the results are clear. All the dates concentrated around the 10th century BC. The most intense time of production here was at the time of King Solomon. For decades, we've wondered what could have been the source of wealth of this small kingdom in Jerusalem that controlled a huge area according to the Hebrew Bible. And now with this discovery, we suddenly have an amazing source of wealth that can explain the power of King Solomon. This is an incredible find that will force people to rethink history. To me, it's clear that
I'm a responsible meat man, which is why I was tickled to learn that Greenfield Natural Meat Company is proudly carbon neutral. That is responsible bacon.
clear that if there were mines of King Solomon, they were of copper and they were here.
If these Timna Valley copper mines did in fact belong to King Solomon, it goes a long way toward proving the Bible's claims of his unimaginable wealth. But one crucial detail is still missing. Where did his gold come from? 1 Kings chapter 10 of the Bible states, "The weight of the gold which Solomon received each year was 666 talents." Converted into today's measurements, that's approximately 25 tons of gold for each year of his 40-year reign. To put that into perspective, the Bible says that King Solomon had more than double the amount of the U.S. gold bullion deposits currently held in the New York Federal Reserve. Nowhere within the kingdom of the Israelites can that incredible volume of gold be found. Therefore, we can only reach one conclusion. While the kingdom may have had a lucrative copper mine within its territory, the gold must have been brought in from outside. Fortunately, the Bible gives us a clue about who might have transported it and where it originated. According to the Bible, Solomon expanded his kingdom from the southern border with Egypt all the way to Syria, putting him in a position to control merchants and freight carriers between Africa, Europe, and Asia. But only one nearby group had ships large enough to carry massive quantities of gold: the Phoenicians. The Bible describes a clear connection between Solomon and the Phoenician king Hiram. Solomon gave the Phoenicians grain supplies, and in return, according to the Book of Kings, Hiram sent his men to Ophir and brought back 420 talents of gold, which they delivered to Solomon. Is it possible that if we head to Ophir, we might find the source of Solomon's gold? Unfortunately, the Bible doesn't tell us exactly where Ophir was. Historians have speculated that it could have been somewhere in the Middle East, Africa, or Asia, but its exact location has remained a mystery. A mystery that may have recently been solved by an historian in the Tigray region of Ethiopia.
In the Bible, the land of Ophir is known as the land of gold. Ethiopia means the land of the yellowish gold, and the majority of gold is found here in Tigray. We think that gold from the Bible is from here.
Situated in the far north of the country, Ethiopia's Tigray region is a very likely candidate for the location of Ophir. Because not only is the land rich in gold, but it also has a surprising connection to King Solomon. At the time of Solomon's reign, this area was possibly controlled by another famous biblical figure, the Queen of Sheba. And what's more, according to the Bible, she and Solomon were quite close with one another. The second book of Chronicles states that early in Solomon's reign, the queen visited Jerusalem to seek out his famous wisdom. And she didn't come empty-handed. Her gifts included 120 talents of gold, around 4 tons of it, from her kingdom's mines. The queen and Solomon had a love affair, resulting in the birth of a son, forever uniting these two kingdoms. But the gold Sheba brought to Solomon was just the tip of the iceberg. She may have possessed some of the oldest and most famous gold mines in recorded history. There's a chance those gold reserves still exist today, in a remote area just 40 miles from where Sheba's palace once stood.
All this land where I'm standing is full of gold, and the search continues today.
While the exact location of the ancient gold mines has remained a mystery, there are still trace deposits at the surface. To find them, locals extract earth from the banks of the river, filling their buckets with sediment. Then they take that sediment down to the water for sifting. If we're close enough to the potential source of the Queen of Sheba's gold, the proof will be in this pan.
Oh wow, look at that.
The search for King Solomon's mines has taken us out of Israel and into northern Ethiopia. There's a chance that this could be the source of King Solomon's gold, from ancient mines controlled by his closest ally, the Queen of Sheba. By panning for trace deposits of gold near the surface, locals in this area hope to pinpoint the source of Sheba's treasure. And it appears they're on the right track.
Look at that. We found gold. Over the right.
With this much gold close to the surface, there is almost certainly a much larger vein nearby. But finding it requires a major excavation.
These stairs lead us to a network of hidden tunnels deep underground.
These tunnels are located near a high concentration of surface gold deposits and date to what the Bible describes as the time of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. They have only recently been rediscovered, and the careful work of exploring them has barely begun. Some historians, including Cisse, believe they could lead directly into Sheba's mines. If so, we may be standing closer than ever before to the source of King Solomon's gold.
With excavation continuing in Ethiopia, one of the Bible's greatest mysteries, the true location of King Solomon's mines, seems on the verge of being solved. But Solomon left behind one other incredible treasure that may be even more valuable than all of his or Sheba's gold. At the height of his power, Solomon's crowning achievement was the construction of the first Hebrew temple. He built it here, on Jerusalem's Temple Mount, where the Dome of the Rock sits today. In Solomon's time, it looked like this, one of the greatest buildings of the era, adorned in copper and gold, a majestic structure designed for an important purpose. This was where Solomon kept the most powerful object the Israelites possessed, the Ark of the Covenant. Much like the location of King Solomon's mines, this iconic biblical artifact has long been lost. But a new theory is emerging, one that suggests the mines, the gold, the Queen of Sheba, and the Ark of the Covenant might be connected. And this connection could potentially lead us to the Ark's present-day location.
According to the Bible's book of Exodus, the Ark of the Covenant was built to house the tablets of the Ten Commandments. It was made of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 wide, and 1.5 high, or in today's measurements, 52 inches by 31 by 31. The entire chest was plated with gold, inside and out. 4 gold rings were attached to its corners, where gold-plated wood poles could be inserted to carry the ark. The lid was also gold, adorned with 2 winged cherubs. But it's not just the precious metals and craftsmanship that make it valuable, because the ark was also thought to be a powerful weapon. According to one biblical story, the ark was once stolen by a tribe called the Philistines, who were immediately afflicted by misfortunes, including tumors, boils, and a plague of mice. Their torment only stopped once they returned the ark to the Israelites. Eventually, King David brought it to Jerusalem, where his son, King Solomon, installed it in the temple. From there, the mystery begins. The first Hebrew temple was destroyed in a war with the Babylonians 2,700 years ago. But there's no record of the ark among the spoils. It's unusual for such a valuable treasure to go completely unaccounted for. The question is, could the ark have been moved before the Babylonians arrived? If so, where and when? One large group of believers over 1,200 miles from Jerusalem is convinced that the ark ended up in their territory, perhaps even during King Solomon's reign. It may be an unlikely story until you realize they live in a place we've already visited. Ever since the destruction of King Solomon's famed temple in Jerusalem, its greatest treasure, the Ark of the Covenant, has been missing. But some believe that the Ark may have been moved long before the temple fell, to the home of one of Solomon's most valuable allies, the Queen of Sheba. According to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church,
What is a synonym for hashtag?
Aquathorpe.
Correct.
Okay, smartphone. One tutorial and boom, nailed it. Checkmate, bruh. You are what you eat. Welcome to the Smart Club.
when Solomon and Sheba's son Menelik came of age, he returned to Jerusalem to visit his father. Solomon tried to persuade Menelik to stay and become his heir, but the young prince returned to Ethiopia as his mother's heir instead. When he arrived back home, Menelik made a shocking discovery. There among his possessions was the Ark of the Covenant, which, unbeknownst to him, had been secretly taken from Israel by members of his entourage. But despite the Ark's power, Menelik's people suffered no plagues, leading them to assume they must be its rightful owners. The Solomonic dynasty ruled over Ethiopia for over 2,000 years. And Ethiopian Orthodox scholars like Dr. Solomon Gatane believe the Ark has remained in the country to this day. This ceremony has never been filmed for television before. In the Ethiopian town of Axum, worshippers have gathered for an early morning mass. The focus of today's sermon is the Ark of the Covenant.
We have seen this morning the gathering of people for prayer. Now, this is a unique opportunity to see the